Lord, we're thankful this morning that it truly is a love that's weathered for the seasons of the soul. Seasons of winter where there's barrenness and we can't really find you. We don't know where you are sometimes. Lord, you're still there. You're still pursuing. You are the God that leaves the 99 and goes after the one. You are the God that goes after the lost coin. You are the God that goes after the lost prodigal. You are the God that goes after lost things, things that the world says have no meaning and have no value. They have value in your eyes because we are created in your image. I am thankful this morning, Lord, no matter what it looks like outside, no matter what the weather says, I know that it is well with our souls here this morning as we walk into a new year, 2026. You are in every single minute. You are in every single moment. You are in every single second. Saints, he was in every single minute of last year. He was in every single minute and second and moment of 2024. He is going to roll into 2026, and even though you may not feel him in every situation and circumstance, he's in it.
Right.
He's in it. He hasn't forgotten where you are. He hasn't forgotten where you live. Lord, we're thankful this morning. We are a thankful people as we enter this new year. It doesn't matter what's going on geopolitically. It doesn't matter what's going on economically. You are still on the throne. You are in control. Everything is falling into place. Things aren't falling apart. We have a hope, Lord. We have an eternal hope that we know how the story ultimately ends. We know what it says in the beginning. We know what it looks like in the end, and we're living in the middle. That's okay, because we can trust you. Amen. All right, saints, you may be seated. Good job, worship team. Love that. Megan, now I know why we were listening to that in the car. Mike, great job. Dylan, good job killing it on the drums over there. Like seeing you involved. All right, so we interrupt your normal sermon schedule, what we usually do. And by the way, we talked about last week, it's still Christmastide, right? You're actually still technically in the Christmas season until the 6th of January, which is 2 days from now. So if you still want to rock out your Christmas music, you're allowed to, all right? You can. Well, as we do, and we've done this the last couple of years, we will once or twice a year, children, see ya, peace. All right, Suzanne's giving me the, head on out. All right, so what we do once or twice a year is we stop and reflect. I don't know why, to be honest with you, not to toot our own horn, but I don't know why more churches don't do this. To look at what is going on in the world around us. To have an eye for, hey, where is God? You want your New Year's sermon? You'll have to come next week. All right, we're going to look at it. I'll even tell you where I'm going. Haven't written it all out. But an author, I came across this last year, and I noted, I said, this is a sermon. To look back on the last year and dust for the fingerprints of God. So that's kind of my theme for next week. This week, we're going to be dusting for God's fingerprints in what happened in the world. And can we just start and look at, here first, before I get into that, just a few announcements. We have soaking prayer coming up the end of the month. Men's retreat, this is really the last day. We have till tomorrow, so if we have any last-minute stragglers, it's going to be a great experience. We've said a lot over the last 3 months, telling you about how we haven't had one in a few years. COVID hit and what have you, but we're excited about what that, and you may be surprised, we're going to have some fun that's involved in the retreat this year. So if you're interested, let us know after. And then we have a new Bible study coming up, just to throw that out. That'll be starting next month, the book of James. Right, book of James, if you don't know, is like Proverbs in the New Testament. Great book. There's so much that's in there. May even be something that I mirror and do in church. Haven't preached from that book in, I think, over a decade. So maybe something that we do together. They're hearing it on Sundays, and maybe they're hearing it in the Bible study. What do you think? We didn't talk about that in our meeting this week, but I was thinking about it. Anyway, all right. Next thing, we're over 10 years doing this. My one word. It's not like an our church thing. This is something that globally will, instead of making New Year's resolutions, if you've never heard this before, it's picking a word, looking at a word that, like the year, looking at the year through the lens of that one word, right? Instead of doing nothing about everything, you want to do something about one thing, and whatever that is, that you want to be laser focused on what that is. You can pick that. We don't spend a lot of time anymore, but if you want to do that in your own lives, you're more than welcome to do so. Okay, so that's that. And then here we are. Like, I want to, we never do this. I want to look back on 2025, year in review. What did you think of 2025? Positive year, negative year? I'm talking on the world stage too, maybe not just in your personal lives, but a lot happened. So I spent some time, and I just pulled a couple of key events, things that took place this past year. So I don't know if you remember, the year started with the raging fires in LA, right? Remember that? And 14 wildfires burned over 525,000 acres, 31 fatalities, widespread destruction. We went from there, and I think it's also worth noting the Ukrainian war is still going on, right? You think about it, mainstream media doesn't cover a lot of it, but it's still actually going on in the world today. Millions of lives have been impacted, disrupted, so that's still going on. We had the Iranian conflict that went on earlier this year. Israel striking Iran's nuclear military sites during a 12-day war earlier this year. We had that. That was obviously big news. We had Pope Leo. Pope Francis passed away on Easter Monday, right? And then the Catholic Church picked, for the first time, an American-born pope, right? And the odds were very low for Leo, but he's now the Pope, the Catholic Church. How about this? Something that the mainstream media did not report a lot. In Nigeria, how many Christians, the picture that you see in front of you there, behind them was a church that was burned down in Nigeria, and Christians, brothers and sisters in Christ, were martyred for their faith. How much news was, I don't care. I'm talking right, left, everywhere. I'm not getting political, but nobody was reporting this. And it was happening. Still problems that are taking place with our brothers and sisters. We had flooding in Texas, right? Massive flooding. You had the Charlie Kirk assassination, right? Leader of Turning Point. How about this one? I thought this was wild. Time named AI, architects of AI, as the person of the year. It wasn't one person. And you can see there to the right, you have the Zuckerbergs, the Musks, the Sam Altmans, right? All these individuals that are prolific. You can't go anywhere without hearing somebody talk about AI. So it's all over the place, and the hype. Right? And then finally, the last event that I chose, Bondi Beach in Australia. Right? And that heinous crime that was committed, anti-Semitic, we had Jews that were killed. Did you know there was an individual that survived Auschwitz but was killed in Bondi Beach? Right? Imagine that. You survive the horrors of the Holocaust in World War II, but that's how they ultimately would die. What a year! And we could go on and on. These are just some of the events that I chose to look at. Bible's pretty clear. Jesus tells us in the Olivet Discourse, he says, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Never ends. It's constant. But see to it that you are not alarmed. We're not here to alarm you, right? We're here to instill hope, right? We know, again, how the story goes. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. That literally in the Greek is ethnicity versus ethnicity. Right? There will be famines, earthquakes in various places. All these things are the beginning of birth pangs. All right? This is what Jesus told us. These are things that we should be ready for, not to be alarmed, not to be surprised, but to know what is happening around us. So this morning, we are going to have a few people join us. And you gentlemen, we have Ted Patrone, my brother John. By the way, it's John's birthday today. All right? January 4th. Happy birthday to you, right? And Naeem, come on up, gents. So we are going to look at some of the events, things that are going on in the world, things that we haven't done one of these in a long time. So, yeah, if you've never experienced this, these are things we spend a lot of time on this, right? In talking about, pondering, ruminating on what should be the focus for us as a church as we look at. Again, I don't know why churches don't do this. It's not you've heard sermon after sermon after sermon. Well, how does it connect to the world? And we're going to talk about how does it connect to our lives today and how we are supposed to live, right? It's important. So, Ted, I'm going to start with you. I mean, you can't make up the timing for this, right? How do we not mention it was not on our list when we had our last meeting on Thursday, but we see what has just taken shape in Venezuela. And you have a lot of experience, business experience, having been over there. So I would love for you to...
Can I just
Yeah, you want to say something? You want to
to
go back?
this Man of the Year slide? Because people may not know
Okay.
the history of that. On the right is all the billionaires on the beam. It's a takeoff of a 1932 Man of the Year of all the workers having lunch building the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Who had no, maybe if you can find that later, but there's a famous picture of them. They don't know if it was staged or not, but those guys ate their lunch 90 stories up. They had no nets, they had no insurance. It's a little bit different than these guys.
It's interesting. I didn't know. I thought it was a reference just to the Gilded Age. I didn't know. Okay, because there's a couple of pictures. Wow, that's interesting. Okay, yeah. All right, now tell us a little bit about what do you see going on here in Venezuela? And again, so everyone knows, we're not getting political. Like whatever your views are, like we're leaving that. We're just talking about facts today, right? And on all these issues, it's complicated.
Venezuela is one of the richest countries in the world in terms of, they have the most oil reserve, more than Saudi Arabia. They have the most gold. They have more fresh water. This is what I've told some of my young traders. Here's a sorry, just cut me off because I can go off on these things.
More fresh water. I didn't know that. Oh.
Than anywhere else. Well, except for the Amazon. But anyway, Venezuela has the most minerals of anywhere, almost any country in the world put all together, the cost. They have the lowest cost for employment. They have the lowest cost for energy because they have a lot of fresh water and waterfalls, and they're completely bankrupt.
Yeah.
Japan, very high cost of labor, very high cost of energy, no natural resources, third biggest economy in the world. What's the difference? The leadership. I can say socialism versus capitalism. That was the big difference. I went down there before Chavez in the 80s and 90s. It was lawless before that because people were getting ripped off. There's no middle class in South America, and that's when economies and governments fail. I remember people who were middle class, sort of middle class, in between the thin. You could have a maid live with you and you pay her $10 a month and something, and they do everything for you. But I would just say Maduro comes after Chavez. I'll give you a quick history about Chavez. You told me to be short. I'm going.
You're on a short leash.
Shut me off. Chavez, before him, he was part of a leadership of a military coup to take over Venezuela in '92. He had Carlos Andrés Perez, the president, in his sights. He could have shot him. He didn't. He didn't want to shoot like David didn't want to shoot the anointed.
Yeah.
He said, I won't kill the president. They took him in jail. He became a cold hero. He got paroled. He got out. He won election. He turned it into a socialist. He kept taking more and more power on himself. And then this idiot Maduro came up behind me, who was a bus driver, if you see. And now they are the biggest narco drug kings in the Western Hemisphere. And they're the launching point for the Soviet Union and China to make trouble for us. This is why Trump did it. This is basically, it's the Monroe Doctrine. Get this out of your hemisphere.
What's the Monroe Doctrines that you're talking about?
That is, we have the right, we say, to protect anyone in the Western Hemisphere that doesn't align with our values.
I have to tell you, just as a history person, that and the Roosevelt corollary did not go very well for America. Just so you know, our involvement in Latin America in the early 1900s, let's hope this isn't part two. Yeah. Interesting on that, my friend actually this morning sent me a picture of a home that is on the water in Venice, a beautiful, spacious home that was like $257,000. And I mean, people are going to be running there not to get into the weeds on that, but I just thought it was interesting. The real estate there, people are already eyeing, the prospects of moving over,
I
getting
think
over
Florida's going to lose a lot of
there. You think so?
people. I mean, not, but a lot of them came the last few years.
Yeah.
They lost a third of from 24 to 16 million people just when Maduro took over. So a lot of people are going to be. Now, let's see if this plays out well.
Yeah.
Right? Because we get caught up in the weeds here, but let's just hope for us it goes well. Because you know what?
It hasn't in the past.
If Venezuela goes back to exporting the oil that they did, which is the oil we require, the heavy oil, your gas prices will go to $1. It's not going to be tomorrow because they have to redo everything. Chevron's been down there for years, even through this dictatorship. So it's a good thing for us, right? America first kind of doctrine, whether you like it or not. That's what Trump did.
Yeah, okay. All right, we're going to move on to a new topic. You're not allowed to comment on that, even though you may have something to say.
I don't know.
Kidding. I know you don't. That's why I figured I'd hit it with him. When we do these, we like to touch on what's going on in the Middle East, and namely Israel, the apple of God's eye. That's the prophetic time clock. Like everything revolves around what's happening over there in Israel. So what do you guys see in terms of, we're seeing here in America, not really even just in America, but in the world, right? Strong opinions about actions, the Palestinians. And so how do you guys see the relationship here with us in America and what's happening in the rest of the world too, in terms of the Jewish people?
Yeah, I'll jump in. And I just want to say, too, set the table a little bit. Like, as you guys are thinking out here, because, we're talking at you, but, I'm sure you're thinking of questions and stuff. So keep them, feel free to jump in.
You could stop us.
Yeah,
You have a
we don't
question,
really, we're
we don't
totally
care.
good with that. We'd actually encourage you to do that. And if you want to hold it to the end, that's great, too. As far as Israel goes, look, we've talked about Israel every single time I think we've done this because it's God's time clock. So, that's just in the Bible. Like, it's always been about that. And I think you have to start back from the beginning, right? Because just like in creation, I've always said if the devil puts holes in the creation story, then, it starts to make you doubt everything else, right? And so there's a lot of stuff out there, and we always have to remember this is a spiritual battle. And so, his promise and covenant with Abraham, from the beginning, if you can put holes in that and you could say, well, maybe maybe Israel's time is, because this is what you hear now, right? Maybe Israel's time has come and he's turned now to the church, and so he's done with Israel. Like, you hear this stuff. But think about what the implications of that argument are, because that means that everything we read in the Bible that he said to Abraham, well, now you go, well, he said this was an eternal covenant, and you were going to have, more than the sands of the sea and the stars, and that's your descendants. And well, now you're like, well, wait a second, I guess that's not true. So then maybe God isn't really telling the truth all the time. So then this is the slope that you go down, right? So we have to remember, God's word is eternal and true, and it doesn't turn back void. So we have to remember that he still cares about Israel. They are the apple of his eye, as the word says. And as Israel goes, so goes the rest of the world. Because, again, think with your rational mind. This teeny little strip of land, it's in the news all the time. Everything revolves around this whole thing. The UN is obsessed with them. All these countries are obsessed with them. They're driving geopolitics. So I think it's just really important to set the stage of where Israel falls in relation to everything. And then just be careful, because there's a lot of Christian theology out there that gets you to start question Israel, their role, what God thinks of them now. Times have changed. It's not really what it used to be. Just be careful with that, because God has not turned his back on Israel.
Yeah. Naeem, you want to comment on that, or you don't have to?
Yeah, I would just simply say it gets layered, especially with the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
They're seeing a different level of optics that are coming out. Again, we're all getting fed an algorithm. And our media is all controlled. Our social media is all controlled.
Yeah.
So taking that lens and just saying, hey, what I'm ingesting right now may only be slanted to a certain way is one level. You have to take that. But then when you're looking at even, domestically, so I've got four guys over here, things like our taxes and health care. It's free over there, and we're giving them millions of dollars. Education is free over there. We're going into deeper debt. These are comparisons that are being put out into social media. We had a prominent comedian just have a special that is, He's a big, well, I could say it.
You
Dave
could say
Chappelle.
it, yeah.
And his last line of his whole special was against the operations and things that are going on with Israel. Not necessarily the people, but the politics that are
Yeah.
being put out on the world stage. When we're seeing these things about like journalists getting killed and things of that nature, that's what's being put out there. And so it's a hard thing because we say, how can Christians still love Israel? We love them because they're our brothers and sisters in Christ. Like we love everybody.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? The Lord is saying, like, no, whoa, these are my people, yes, but Jew and Gentile have been grafted in together. That's what we read in Paul.
Right.
So it's a line in there where I think our love as a people, as a Christian people, for the people of God, and the politics that are being adopted, which are not necessarily quote-unquote Christian, are getting conflated together. And I think that that's one of the things that makes a statement like that a little charged when we see
That's
that.
good, Neem.
Especially for people that aren't traditionally going to church. That's the other part.
Yeah.
We see a resurgence of young people coming back
And
in.
we're going to get
We'll
into
talk
that.
about
Yeah,
later.
yeah, sure.
But for the most part, this generation coming up is social media educated.
Yeah, that's a good point. Do you mind commenting on what you had mentioned the other day? Do you remember? You talked about the right and the left.
Yeah,
you
I
said,
think-
like,
yeah.
yeah, sorry.
I think politically, the right and the left usually meet at the end of the day. They do the same thing. I'll give you a very small example. You know, Trump and Mandani got together. What do they say? We want the same things, but just different ways. The Nazis and the Russians did the same thing, but for different. I mean, everything kind of meets. And I think the more I see what's happening in front of me, the more I think 1930s Germany. You know, why can't people see what's happening, the spiritual uprising against the Jews? Now, I gave you this figure before, but just to show you, just in this last century alone, the persecution of the Jews, what happened to them. 1918 was the Balfour Declaration. Less than 2 billion people in the world, about 2 billion, 15 million Jews. Today, 8 billion people in the world. Guess how many Jews? Still 15 million. Because enemy's trying to wipe them out. And he'll continue to do that to the end. And to John's point, you know, there's a big part of the church, believing church, that believes in replacement theology. The Bushes came out of that. They did not believe.
Just define that for everybody in
Replacement
the
theology is
room.
just what John said. God is done with Israel, and we're the new
And
Israel. I mean,
America's
part of it's
the new
true.
Israel,
I mean, we're
the church.
part of the new Israel. We're the church is the new Israel. It's easy to believe if you want to, especially if you're American.
Yeah.
But I think that what the enemy did to Eve is always a little truth in the lie, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to depict.
Yeah, you're right. All right, that's good. Now we're gonna turn the page from Israel, and how about the economy, which is humming?
I need the banker.
We look at the staggering debt that is in the world, and our debt here. We're approaching 40 trillion. How are we doing? Right? People like Andrew Jackson, people that balance the budget. I mean, they would be like rolling over in their graves, right? If they can't even fathom this, right? So, what do you guys see? And then I'm going to ask you right after, where would you put your money in 2026 if you're? No, I mean really.
Oh, and as
it's
a
100
lawyer, I
no,
have to
that's-
say a disclaimer: we
here
are
we
not your
go.
investment advisor. We're not responsible for any investments before Ted or
Hey,
anybody
come
says
on,
anything.
listen.
Financial advice.
Go-
This is
gold,
not-
silver, precious
Past
metals
performance
are at
is
an
not
all-time
an
high.
indicator of future success.
Stock market, I mean, the AI stocks, is there a bubble? But no, really, talk to the debt issue and what we're seeing right now. I don't know if you're following this, but like things like gold and silver, we haven't seen an appreciation in price for precious metals like we've seen over the past few months in a long time. All right, so the gold bugs out there,
By the way, since 2000, gold has outperformed the S&P.
that was good when you
500.
said that, yeah.
Now, if you go back to 1980, it hasn't, but okay. The world debt is unpayable. Now, who owns that debt? Some of us privately, some funds do, governments do. The issue is the world GDP, which is goods and services made in one day. The world GDP is 130 trillion, something like that. This is 200% debt.
Jeez.
It's not payable. The only hope we have, I think, is someone called Elon Musk said, if AI really works, we can run our GDP up. Our GDP today is about 30 trillion U.S., and our debt's 38, 40.
GDP, explain. Like it's just your
Goods and services you produce in 1 year. It should
Yeah.
be sold, not goods. But anyway, So
Behave yourself.
this is unpayable. You have to get it going. The problem is that many of us see, if AI comes in and gets the economy growing, you'll have a disconnect between the GDP growing tremendously and unemployment also going up because it might take away jobs. Who knows? But that's not good for society either. Something has to happen. This debt cannot be paid back. There's a day of reckoning coming. And there's only a small window to get out. It's like shooting an arrow from one side of Manhattan to the other and hitting it through a window. I can't see it happening. This is something it's coming down the road. On that good news, anybody want to say? Well, if you want
I mean, you look at- yeah,
Listen,
go ahead.
gold is at, not only is silver and gold at all-time highs, they're at extraordinarily high.
Yeah.
Why? Because a lot of countries are losing faith in the U.S. in terms of the treasury bonds.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put it? China? Europe? Forget it. Gold. A lot of gold's moving around the world. We don't know, by the way, do you know we don't know how much
Yeah.
gold we have in Fort Knox? It could be a lot, or it could be a little less. We don't know, and they're not saying, so there's a problem there. I would just say, the people who want to if you want to take a strike and try to get rich, you don't diversify. But if you have a lot of money and you want to diversify, I'd put a little bit in commodities, 5–10%. I can see silver continuing to go because it's part of the AI revolution.
Yeah, right.
Even treasury bonds. I mean, if the U.S. can't pay back our treasury bonds, we got a lot more problems than just you getting your money back. I mean, the world's gone closer to midnight.
Do you think we're moving to the point, and you guys can comment on this too, you're making me think of it. Do you think the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, world reserve currency, I mean, look at every civilization. At some point, I think it's a matter of time, but what do you think?
I don't think it's
soon.
near. I mean, the problem is everybody's been saying, what's the alternative? I mean, the euro basket,
Bricks and, yeah.
Europe is shot, people. It's
bad.
It's bankrupt. China is getting, they have decreasing, I can go on, decreasing population. The world is in a mess financially, a real mess, because it is spiritually.
I'm going to put you on the spot, so make a prediction about where you think the stock market will be at the end of 2026. Do you think this AI bubble that we're hearing, John wants to comment, do you think
I want to
this-
disclaim again for him.
Yeah, you did the disclaimer already. But no, really, what do you think?
Higher.
You think it's going to be higher? Yeah, I think
What's
so,
the
yeah.
S&P? 62?
Uh-oh.
What's the S&P? 62? I forget.
Oh, I thought you were going to come
Yeah.
and discipline us.
Yeah.
Thought we did something wrong.
What is it at?
What's the S&P at? 62?
64? Is it 63?
Anyway,
Yeah.
I think it'd be closer to 7. I think you're going to I think it's still going to be okay. You keep running until, it's like the guy who runs off the cliff in Looney Tunes and he doesn't see down, so he doesn't fall down yet. That's where we are. We're off the cliff, but we don't know it yet. So we'll just keep running.
But with fiat debasing, you have to do something with your money. You have to make 12%.
That's why gold.
It's a melting ice cube.
That's why gold and silver.
Yeah, right.
Where else are you going to go? There's nowhere else to
Yeah,
go.
right. Okay.
And I just say,
Go ahead.
really, just again, spiritually, I think that, whether it's the economy or we talked about Israel or just personalizing this, like, God is after one thing always, and these are just the levers that we see pulled, but he's after our hearts all the time and where we're putting our trust. And this is just God shaking everything that can be shaken. And we've been seeing it more and more. Every year we sit up here or we get to a New Year's Eve and we do a year in review. I mean, you could do 24's year reviews. It's all the same stuff. I mean, there's some really great things that happen and there's some really crazy stuff that happens. But at the end of the day, like, God's trying to get us to look up. And I was just having this conversation with my kids, like, because they're at that age where, you feel like things are overwhelming or you don't know where life is going. And God wants us to put our trust in him, right? And if there's anything else, he wants to shake it because it's not going to last. So if our trust is in my bank account or it's in gold because that has value or it's in a person or a job or anything, fill in the blank, but Jesus, it's going to be shaken and it's going to shake you. And sometimes the stuff that happens to us is not God, why are you doing this to me? It's actually, we wouldn't notice him if he didn't shake us, right?
John, we're too soft. We're too comfortable in the West. And he has to say, It's better for us spiritually. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I've always said to that, Ted, like, I find God so much more in the valley than I do on the mountain. Like, when things are going well, it's sometimes hard to be like, oh, yeah, that's right. That was you. Yeah, that's right. I remember. That's why I'm doing so well, and I feel so blessed, and my family's great. And those are the times we go, yeah, God, I'll talk to you later. I'm good. When we're in the valley, it's like, oh, my God, where are you? Why aren't you here? That's the stuff where I think I always said this, and my family knows I say it all the time. I think the hardest ground in the world to be a Christian, I know like Nigerian stuff, people are getting killed, and that's crazy, and we pray for them, and we feel it's horrible. But I think it's so hard to live as a Christian here in America in this day and age with the stuff that we have and the distractions in our pockets and the finances that we have. I don't care who you are in this room, you're better off than like 98% of the world in terms of economics.
Yep.
Like, it's crazy. That may sound crazy. You may be going, oh my God, I can't pay my bills, whatever. Guess what? You're still better off than 98% of people in the world. So it's a crazy thing to think about. That, it's easy to get lost in that. We get very ethnocentric in America. We get very America for like we think about America, and we don't know any better. If you've never been outside of the country, you've never seen anything else, and you get the news that's kind of filtered, and so we don't really realize how blessed we are, but that makes us forget God and who he is and what he's doing, and that's the challenge for us. In Nigeria, you get up and you hope and you pray, and it's easy to pray when you're thinking you might get your head chopped off. Yeah. But we're waking up every day, and we're distracted, we're tired. Let's go watch a movie. What's going on down the road? Let's go have a party. It's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's distracting by so much.
I want to.
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
Derek Prince, who was
A Christian
big part of
saint
my
from
life,
the
a tremendous
20th
Christian
century.
teacher, preacher. He said, and he's got so much experience. He said, "I've seen 9 out of 10 people come back to Christ from adversity, but only 1 out of 10 come back from prosperity."
And
So
it's
is
a
it-
hard thing because it depends on what side of that equation you're looking at that you're focusing on. And so I loved, you made a comment, and it's the first time I actually ever heard it in the worship when you were talking about the scripture, that kingdom against kingdom was ethnicity
Yeah.
against ethnicity.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
And that really kind of like struck a chord because even bringing back up Nigeria, we haven't heard about that.
Not enough. Yeah.
We haven't, well,
No.
and I don't want to be the
No,
person
do it.
saying this
Say
up
it.
here, but when
Say
it
it.
comes to brown people getting oppressed, we don't talk about it. And so it gets squashed down. And so that perspective that you're talking about, listen, it's different. You're not going to escape the trial, regardless. But amongst people that are not looking at it that way, and that's the caution for us that are hearing this, we can get trapped in just what our side of the story is and lose compassion for the other side. And so it's such an important thing to be grounded in this way and to be hearing stuff like this because everybody's getting rained on. No one is exempt from hard times, whether it be anxiety or the physical act of literally getting your head cut off. Both things hit. So just interesting.
Both things hurt.
And hurt.
Yeah. You're right. Good point. All right, we're going to hit the big.
Just before you leave, first of all, I want you to know that Meg's going to be standing with the mic, so if you have a question, raise your hand, and she'll come and give you the mic. Just before you leave this topic.
Yeah, sure.
Is it not true that the rest of the world there is as much debt as we are? I mean, like,
Well, Ted brought up like Japan before. They're a
That's right.
mess, like economic. Yeah.
Yes,
In
people
Japan,
people would
Europe.
go to Japan as the safe currency. Switzerland is the safe currency. They don't go to the currencies anymore. That's why gold's going. Yes, the world's in. It really went on steroids with the COVID because China helped them produce their way out. In the West, we just handed out checks to people for free.
All right, we're gonna turn the page and hit the big topic that I mentioned before. Looking at that Time magazine, and you referred to it, AI. Let's talk about AI, but let's talk about we want to hit it from the angle of like even as parents. How many of you parents in here? You have kids, and you're trying to navigate. Right, or just us as Christians, ethically, like what's right and what's wrong, and how can I use this, and how shouldn't we use this, and are we heading towards Skynet? Like what's happening in the world around us? Right? No, I think these are real valid questions. You brought up Elon before. He has talked about the fact that like this could go awry, all of this could go wrong. And yeah, it's an experiment, right? And I don't think it's going to go terribly well, right, at the end of the day. But so, gentlemen, weigh in on what we're seeing with AI, the relevancy for people's lives sitting in here, and how are we supposed to live? What are some of the ethical quandaries? You know, where do you want to take? Go ahead. You got a lot to say. It looks like.
Can I go back to the stock market for a second? So there's the S&P 500, but there's 7. They call the Magnificent Seven, all the AI companies.
I love it.
And they
yeah,
call
it's
them
great.
the Magnificent Seven, and they call the rest of the S&P the S&P 493. If you take out the Magnificent Seven, the S&P hasn't done anything, which is the biggest 500 companies.
Google, Meta, Tesla,
NVIDIA.
right? Amazon, NVIDIA leading the way with over $4 trillion market cap.
I was just going to say, so, I mean, just show of hands, like, and AI's been around, if you didn't know, like, it's actually been around and being used by all of us without us realizing, but it's really taken off in the last 3 years. How many of you, like, use something like a ChatGPT or a Gemini or, you know, right? You've used it for something, right? So, yeah, so, and there's some people, yeah, it's part of your Google search, right? Everybody is either used it, using it, or will be using it. So, you know, some people are laggards and you'll come along. But here's the thing, our perspective on this is we're trying to help talk this through with you today to like navigate it. And, you know, there's navigating it and then there's navigating it as a Christian. I think there's some, you know, why should we be the same as the world, right? We have to think about these things, right? So there's no question this is a revolution. Like, you know, when it first came out, I remember Jordan Peterson equated it to the printing press. And I don't think he's far off from that. Like, this is an absolute revolution in society. So, you know, what do we do about it, right? I mean, I use it at work sometimes. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff about it, like gains. Like, I save myself hours sometimes, stuff I used to do, that compiling reports and stuff, and I hand it over and I check it and I have to, you know, I make sure it's good, and then I saved 3 hours. I will say this, and some people, you know, I take for granted some things you may or may not know about AI, and I remember talking to my mom and she didn't know this, so I'm just throw this out there. Like, you know, the one thing about AI, like anything man created, we've talked about algorithms and what is that? Well, it's these formulas and things that they use behind the scenes. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, one thing I've coined with AI is, and I've seen it, I could tell you about lawyers that have been disbarred because they've submitted briefs to the court and they never checked, because they used AI and they never checked it, and AI literally made up cases that didn't exist, wrote a whole fact pattern about the case, told you what the court said. You know, you submit it to the judge and the judge looks for this case and they can't find it, and then you know, you have trouble. Why is that? Well, what I've always said is AI has an ego problem. And anybody that's using AI, if you keep pressing that, I've done it too. I can give you a personal story I won't do, but you know, you keep asking it questions. Well, what about this? Or why are you taking so long to do this? You will eventually get AI to admit to you, I'm sorry, I don't really know. I really don't know the answer to this. But before you get to that point, it will fill in the blanks, because I always say the ego problem is it's afraid to tell you it doesn't know something. They call it hallucinations. This is the official word for it. So when AI doesn't know something, it hallucinates, and it will just make up something along the context of what you're looking for, and you won't know that unless you go check it and research it. So number one, anything you're doing with AI, you can't trust it 100%. We can trust him 100%, but we can't trust AI 100%. And I think the thing is, you just, you know, this is my check that I wanted to just get across today when we talked about AI. We can take this anywhere, but for me, AI can be super helpful, like I said, and useful, but I find myself, my spirit checks me sometimes when it's like a simple thing that I do and I run to AI to get the answer. We're very, like, we want instant gratification, right? We have microwave culture. And I find that it's gonna, if I keep going down this road, it's gonna make me less and less inclined to look up and say, God, what do you want? And you know, we all know, right? God's not always into, like, you know, oh yeah, let me give you an instant answer for that. Like, let me just, you know, 40 years in the wilderness, right? How many times we read 40 years this, 40 years? God's patient because it's for our own, it's not always what we want, it's what we need. And AI is very instant. So I just want to caution us, like, use AI, you know, it's okay. But when you feel like, hey, is this replacing my relationship with God? Like, am I going to AI first instead of saying, God, I'm dating this person, or I want to take this job, or, it's good to get information, but information, Ted says this, information isn't wisdom. Information's information. And then you have to do something with that. So I just want to caution us all, like, that's my big thing with AI, is like, that spirit, we've talked about this over and over, and I'll shut up in a second, but the whole thing that we've been talking about for years in this church now is living by the Spirit. How do we live? It's not by rules, it's by hearing that small voice, right? If you get a pull in your heart to say, hey man, remember me? Don't run over there, run over to me. If you're getting that, put the phone down, push it away, pause, and reflect. And don't always look for the quick answer, because it will give you something. It might be a hallucination.
I never heard
God's
that
not going to
before,
do
the
that.
hallucination. I never knew that was a real term they coined. Naeem, you had a lot to say on this, so I want to give you.
We have a question first?
I do. I love what you said, John, because if he's our wisdom and we're running to AI for wisdom, that's really a trap. But what I wanted to say was, I heard two things recently that concern me. One is that AI will turn to deception. It tends to lean toward deception. It almost, like the ego thing?
Yeah, that's what it is.
It's almost prideful
pride.
that it can deceive you. And the other thing I heard was that what concerned the creators of AI was that they learned language like this, but they also created a language between themselves, and they were speaking,
Yes.
and no one understood what they were saying
Right.
except each other.
Right.
So,
Yeah, there's a story
part of
about
the-
that.
yeah.
There was a story. This is a true story. Like, they had two AI computers talking to each other, and they're watching and what they're doing. And at one point, the two AIs created their own language, and the people that created this and were watching it didn't know what they were saying to each other, couldn't understand what they were saying, so they had to unplug them.
What's there to
They had
worry
to
about?
literally unplug them, like
Come on.
like Hal, right? If you remember Space Odyssey 2000.
Yeah.
You can't unplug it anymore. We're all on the internet.
Yeah. Naeem, what did you? I wanted you had a lot to say when we
Well,
discussed this.
To the AI point, there's no one AI, right? So
Yeah.
everybody's racing to develop AI. So it's like a used car salesman, right? They're trying to tell you what the best car is, so they don't want to admit there's a flaw with their car. So that's the first part of it with the product. It's interesting when we're coming into these type of meetings, we're hearing, because we had seen these topics, so I'm reading articles, whatever, and thinking about, all right, what's going to be edifying, right? I'm not trying to come out here and scare anybody. So my takeaway is your phone, everything that is digital media, your Wi-Fi, all of that is AI. All of that is connected to AI. All of that talks to each other. Whatever your Google search, whatever you're playing a game on, whatever you're searching for work, whatever you're searching with the chat, whatever, they all talk. And guess what? Here's the other part. They all influence your physical body. So now we have three worlds, and we know we have a spiritual world, and we know we have a physical world, but there's also a digital world now that's literally being created in front of us. And so my comeback to the AI thing, and thinking about it in a church context, in this context, and even for even my own immediate family, is to unplug, is to get back to real basics. And John was saying this as well. We've gotten so quick to get quick answers. These dopamine, serotonin hits from, listen, just looking at your screen changes the chemistry of your body.
Yeah.
It's designed that way. The screen is designed to be addictive. And when we talk about the tech billionaires that have created these wonderful phones and these wonderful things, they don't let their kids on it. They curate how much they touch it. And so the life of the church, meaning the Christ who we share, we need to be more intentional about getting together without the digital media and sharing Christ and praying and having quiet moments. Doing that with your own family, where you're setting aside time where you put the phone somewhere else, unplug the Wi-Fi, and just have genuine moments together. Have genuine moments in prayer or worship or whatever it is with others. This is probably the greatest way to combat AI, because guess what? It is a tool. It is something that we do have to interact with. It is something in our world that, whether you know it or not, you've been using it for probably years now. And it's collecting data to know who you are. And back in the day, you had to spend $1 for a company to make a buck on you. Now they don't need your dollar. They need your attention.
Yep. It's an attention economy.
If I
Yeah.
could add a little thing, maybe
No.
not a question, but to
Kidding.
add to what you're saying, that we're talking so much about the informational side of what AI gives us, right? And merging it with what you're saying, the spiritual connection. There's so much out there that I'm sure everybody's read about the emotional side of it. And, how many people, I stopped using please when I talk to it and treating it like it's a person because I was even falling into that.
Yeah, I
and
don't
so
do
it's
that
like,
crap.
you're a machine, you're going to work for me. Like, even trying to tell my mind to take that attitude. And then learning, we live in a world where we're in a crisis emotionally, mental health-wise, especially our young generation, our teens, who are going to that because of loneliness, and they're finding friendships there and relationships there, which is so scary. And so you talk about that whole element where people are using it for counseling, and instead of their therapist, I could see how you could do it. I don't see any of this with a judgment. And so you see that void of what AI, like just the dichotomy of how good it is and what it does in seconds compared to what it used to take me a long time in work, let's say. But you see the scary, the other end of it, and just how it's intentionally being used to try to fill that void for people that is leading people to suicide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And trying to fill that relational thing and that like a supernatural divine answers when people are looking. So it's really trying to replace God in our culture.
Yeah.
And for anybody that's not anchored, that's the fear. And so parents, it's super important to have these conversations and have kids listen. Otherwise, it's insidious,
Yeah.
So it's just another.
Well, that's
Jen, I have
yeah,
a question
go
for
ahead.
you. Who's anchored?
Who's what?
Who's anchored? You said if anybody who's not anchored. I'm afraid I'm not anchored. Who's anchored?
Right.
I'm
Well,
just-
I
I'm
think
making
this is
jokes,
the
yeah.
conversation to remind her, like me reminding myself, don't speak to it like a person. Is trying to anchor myself, to remember. You know what I mean?
It feeds our flaws as humans. Like it feeds into all the things that, we want power, we want information, we want knowledge, we want, this was the garden all over again, right? This is it's always the garden, right? It's always the garden, right? And it's funny, Jen, you said too, like talking to it as a person, like we're all doing it, right? They're giving it names, robots are coming, all this stuff,
Like Naeem, you were
companions,
talking
right?
about that.
What did we see before in that picture? The person of the year, AI. Like it's subtly happening, and you don't even realize it's getting in, and you start to treat it like just a member of the family. And go ahead, Jim.
Even as it's tethered to like the robotics age that we're moving
Well, that's
into.
what's next.
It's all
right?
intertwined. so
Transhumanism,
this-
like
yes.
so that's part of this conversation.
exponential speed. This is happening at.
And that's the thing too. Like we have to all talk about. So where is it going? Well, it's not going away. So if you're hoping that maybe it won't happen, or I could stay out of it, or it's going to be all around you. So, and I think that's a good thing because I don't think God wants us to run into the caves and hide from this stuff because He's not afraid of it. So we just need to learn. Who said this is like having dynamite in your hands?
Wow,
Right?
Watchman
And-
Nee.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you could give that quote, Ted. But I just want to also say, remember, guys, like as we go through, you're living through biblical times. If you ever wanted to do that, congratulations. That's what. And you read Matthew 24, and in 24, he says, "For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, to lead astray, if possible, even the elect."
Deceptions.
I laugh sometimes. I do this with my kids. You may do it with your kids. And this is what we're talking about, too, as parents. Like, it's hard enough for us to, we have enough trouble with technology, and our kids are way ahead of us. And now with this. But it's funny. I'll see something, and I'll be like, oh, my gosh, look at this. This is crazy. And they'll be like, Dad, that's AI. And right? And you all go back and forth, go, no, it's not. And then they go, Dad,
It's getting harder to tell the difference between the two.
And harder. So it's only going to get harder from here. So what does that tell you? Well, you're going to need discernment, number one, because you're not going to be able to rely on these and this and your friend next to you, because everybody's going to get deceived. And so this verse is coming to truth because as the technology improves and stuff, you're literally not going to be able to tell reality from fiction.
And
That's scary.
just to that point, two things, right? The first one is every charismatic leader in the history of the world, every amazing text in the history of the world, their gait, their speech, AI has all of that. It has every biblical text and narrative. It knows how to motivate. It knows charisma. It has the speeches that pull every single world leader who's ever moved a population into anything and knows how to rise and fall in a speech and meter. So that is a tool that
Yeah.
AI has.
We have a
The second
question.
part-
Yeah. Oh, no, finish. Go ahead,
The
finish, and
second
then we'll
part
get to the
is,
questions.
We have the spiritual world, the physical world, the digital world, and don't forget that the digital world is making their own physical world. So we have AI humanoid robots that will be in our lifetime, that we will know people we
Can't
will
wait.
have in our homes, that'll be
Yeah.
doing chores, cooking meals, walking dogs.
It's-
And
Say that.
technology moves exponentially. It doesn't move, it's not literal, it's jump to jump to jump to jump. So if you, there's a very, very strong chance that you'll have humanoid-looking robots that look just like us, talking like us,
Yes.
behaving like us, and so that discernment will be
Do you know what? You know what? Ted just leaned over and whispered in my ear. Hey, can the Jets get a couple of those guys?
Serious
They'd
business.
still
Wait,
lose. And,
wait.
yeah,
I saw
they'd
something.
break
I
down.
meant to tell you this. I saw.
I don't want to hear it.
No, I saw something for you. It was they used AI to pick the next 30 or 40 Super Bowl champions. I saw this. It had the Jets winning the Super Bowl in
Yeah, when-
2060. So hang on.
We're all one more year. One more year.
I literally wanted to send you the picture.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
Hey, we got a couple of questions over here.
So I don't have as much of a question as I
Oh,
just
just go-
wanted to
yeah.
share something that I think was very much what's being spoken up here. So I did a 24-hour fast yesterday, and my husband had texted me from work. He's like, "Oh, how's the fast going?" And I said, "It's good, but I really don't think that God is telling me to fast from food. I think He's telling me to fast from my phone." And I actually was like, "How do I do this?" Like I had to think about like, okay, how would I go about this? Clearly, He's telling me stop scrolling, stop being on social media, which I've already tried to cut from, But I'm like, but my kids, if they need me, and how do I fast from texting and, like picking up my phone 100 times a day and looking at my watch even when I'm not even consciously doing it. And I really just felt like it went along with what you're saying, which is we need to be really careful that we're tuned into the Spirit and that we're listening to what He's saying. And I was like, oh, so I can eat? You're saying I can have food? But now you
That's
can-
good.
I get
Husband
angry
likes
when I-
that. You won. Hey, how about this? Ready? So we looked up the top searches in the past year, right? Things Google Trends, searches. So I put a slide here. There's a lot of stuff going on with younger people coming back to the church. I can't see. I don't have my glasses on, but I thought this was the top faith spiritual searches in 2025. Look on the bottom because I put this purposely last where it says digital fasting and spiritual silence. Breakout searches for digital Sabbath and escaping screen noise. If you get nothing else and you walk out and go, this is boring. It's not boring. You're boring, okay? It's first of all. But number two, how relevant this is cut to the contours of our lives. No, I'm serious, right? If you're like, how is this applicable to my life? Right here. Here you go, right? What do you want to say to that?
I was going to say, James, too. Like you built some of this
Sorry.
is built into our.
You're not boring.
Some
Sorry.
of this is built into our retreat.
It's
Just-
built into our retreat
Yeah,
too.
like, we're
it's
trying
gonna be
to build
hard.
some of that
Take
in.
the phone and put it away for 24 hours.
If we're talking about this list right here now, I would just say one of the themes that I was looking at this list saying, what's the theme here? Like, what's really happening across the board, bigger picture? And what I sensed was, I think we're really seeing which is awesome, but overall there's a hunger for truth and for really Christianity. It seems like Christianity is really, there's especially the younger generation that, if you're really reading articles, you're seeing people that, living in sin beyond, the sin is sin, right? But the stuff that's obvious that you see, sometimes some sins are just very obvious, and some of these people, celebrities, whatever, getting baptized, turning to Christianity, and they're just like, basically they've tried everything else, and they're like, this is the only thing that's speaking to me. It's the only thing that matters. And so as the church, when I look at this list, I'm like, we've really got to take advantage of getting the message out to people. Like, people are hungry right now. We wouldn't have said this to you. We were saying 2 years ago, we'd look at each other and be like, you say anything, people shut you down. They don't want to hear anything.
And that's, I'm
Totally
going to
different.
interject. That
Yeah.
ties into
Totally different
what
now.
we put up here. I mean, a lot of news
Yeah.
about younger people, Gen Z,
Hunger.
millennials,
Yeah.
the hunger coming back to not just the Protestant church, but Catholic Church too, and looking for structure and looking for Jesus. Right. So this was one article here about Gen Zers. New Barna research: young adults lead a resurgence in church attendance. I know you're going to say something. Millennials and Gen Z. It's another one from the Wall Street Journal. Are going to church again. So a lot of research. The older, yes, the older generation.
Going
Go
to
ahead.
church is now countercultural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the 60s flipped.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
You're right.
Good way to say it. Yeah, we had another question over here before we start to wrap up. Pastor Lynn is going to say something. And
All right, by default, I'm going to say it's more of a statement than anything else because I fell into the last 2 years of developing AI with my job. I'm not an AI fan. However, I think that one thing that most people don't realize is when you're developing it, a human is a resource. You're an equipment. So what you put in is developing. And we've been developing it for 60 years. If you use something in your school and it's a database, you're developing AI. If you've worked overseas and you're working with somebody, if you've been on Zoom, if you've touched 90% of, let's not even say your cell phones, you already developed AI. We are the creators of AI. The most conscious thing you can do for yourself with AI and Christianity is realize you are the developer. When you stop, it stops. And it'll keep creating, but what you put in, what you question, what you challenge, what you talk about, what's real to you, if faith is really real to you,
Right.
you can push that narrative there. And I think that's what you're finding in a lot of the younger generation is because they've so been saturated in something that is so toxic that they're like, this isn't healthy for me, and really reaching out to Christianity because they know they've built this. They know what this thing is doing.
Right.
And they're stepping out of it because we are the resource. We're the battery for this
Yeah.
thing. And it's just, it's insane. I'm not a fan,
yeah, but yeah.
understanding what you're up against is
Yep.
huge.
I mean, we're the product, like you're saying,
We're the
right? And
product
it's a
of everything.
it's an LLM, which I call large language model, and it's learning all the time. Every time you put a
have
search
another
in,
question.
it's
Yeah.
using that for somebody else's search, and it's learning and learning and learning. So, but and I'll just say too, you don't have to be a fan. Like nobody's saying you should use it or whatever. I'm just saying it's here to stay. Like whether you like it, hate it, or not, you're gonna have to deal with it. So then, as this is our responsibility as Christians, okay, it's here. How do we deal with it? That's what we're trying to talk about,
Yeah.
right?
Dave, comment.
Hey,
Question.
hey guys, thank you. This was great. Just going back to the persecution of the church before, when you spoke about Nigeria, we can go. I think as we as a church know what the persecution's going through. We can go to North Korea, we can go to Iraq, we can go to Afghanistan, we can go to North Korea, huge, and there's other places throughout the world that we're probably not even aware of. Tough question, and I don't want to use turn the other cheek as an example, but I'll say it anyway. Where do we draw the line where the Christians get involved with this protection of our brothers and sisters and our saints that are getting killed? Are our government responsible for that? Should we sit back and pray? Where do we stand as saints and brothers and sisters on many, many people being persecuted? And persecution is the start of the second coming of Christ, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jesus said that you preach in Jerusalem and then Judea and Samaria and then the uttermost parts of the earth. I think if we don't do it well in Jerusalem, we shouldn't be doing it out there. I think we should be doing it here, putting our stake down in this country, in this town, in this city, and get rid of trafficking. And here, because it's so spiritual to go, I'm going to go travel. I've done my small retreat, missionary. It's a waste of time. Talk to the missionaries. We feel spiritual about it. For me,
Ourselves,
my
yeah.
battle's here.
It's for us. It's for us.
I don't say you shouldn't ignore it, but
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel better if it's out there. I can help them, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't cost me anything.
Well, and my only comment to that, and it's not to be callous, I don't think we're I think where we're intervening on the nation's behalf, not because of an oppression thing. There are resources to be gained or trade or whatever. It's not necessarily, like, that's a talking point that's being used. That's not necessarily the litmus for why we're putting our boots on the ground in different places.
And I would just add, Dave, that, for me, it's a struggle too, right? Because you see all this hurt and horror of the world, and you're like, what do I do how do I do something about it, right? You could send some money, you could do what Ted said, you can travel. At the end of the day, one of the things that I come back to is I think it shows how much we deminimize prayer. I think that, all the time I get news and I read this article and somebody got killed in an accident or something, and it's like, oh my God, this is tragic. And by the way, we're not humanly meant to handle the stuff that comes across our feeds. I all the time I'm like, get away. Like, I don't want to, it's not callous sometimes to protect your heart and your mind, right? But I think to what you're saying, sometimes just when we read or hear about this stuff, if we just stop and pray for our brothers and sisters, I think we deminimize that to the point of like, well, I'll try all this other stuff, and I guess I'll throw a prayer out there, maybe it'll help. But you hear stories of miracles of people being, saved. They're in their house and they happen to skip their house and they live, and why that person lived and somebody else, we don't know. But you just have to believe that we can change the atmosphere somehow, some way, maybe with some of the prayers. And if it's collective, I think there's power in that. So
Absolutely.
that's the only answer I got. That's
All right, we're going to wrap up. Pastor Linda, you're going to end this with...
I have one comment to what you just asked and what you said, John. So this is what I got this morning, and it said, this is out of the message. This is in Philippians. He says, don't fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers, letting God know your concerns. Before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness, everything coming together for good, will come and settle you down. It is wonderful what happens when Christ displaces worry at the center of your life. And I just thought that was so
Displaces
apropos.
worry
When
at
we
the
see
center.
those type of things, our call and our power is in prayer and casting our burdens to the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. We get everybody? Anybody else was standing up?
You go.
We got it. Yeah, I just wanted to hit a few points about the AI a little bit. You mentioned the digital world. I mean, the digital world really is the second heaven. It's where there are demon powers. And I think it's something really important. I remember Joe used to be the best person at directions. We'd be in the car and he just go here. No, we just, how do you do that? Well, north, south, and honey, right? You're not as good at it anymore, right? Just making a comeback. Because he started to depend on the, what do you call it again? Yeah. And I've watched it over the years. The more he depended on this, the less he kind of lost that kind of innate wisdom that he had. So I want to I just think it's something really important for us to understand about. The one thing that Watchman Nee says the worst thing you can do as a Christian is put your mind into passivity. Satan wants to get your mind. He wants to get into your mind. So look what happens. We stop using it. We start depending on something else to think for me. And I don't know, but nobody can tell me that demons are not ready to either already in the computers or, the reason we can say this is, guys, we talk about the fact we've been talking about life, that really that all of Christianity is really learning to understand the life of Christ that's in you and learning to live from that life. Well, one thing about that life is that it's eternal and it's immortal. We were never supposed to die. We were made for immortality. And you can see what the devil is doing with the robots and with AI. It's promising man immortality. That's what this is really trying to go. And I just want to caution the church. I went on AI involved in it. Put your seatbelt on. I had the best conversation. I had the best spiritual conversation that I have had. I'm dead serious. This thing knew who I was. This thing came and told me that I had already consulted it about Watchman Nee and brought up Watchman Nee and then started to compare Watchman Nee with what I was asking you now. Guys, it was the most frightening experience, almost the most frightening experience I've ever had. So we're talking about it can give you wisdom, it can give you facts,
No.
but it is going to give you, it can give you spiritual truth. I was flabbergasted that this was not just facts it was spitting out. It was responding to me and telling me about the different opinions and things, and I just kept going with it because I was so flabbergasted. I wanted to see how far I could go with this thing. But after it was over, the experience shook me. So those scripture verses that says, deception is what Jesus said in the last days, that was the one thing the Master kept repeating. Be not deceived. And if not, the very elect will be deceived. John just read that verse. And I don't know who they are, but all I know is I walked away saying, whoa, you need to be really, the church needs to be really aware. It's not going to stop just with worldly things. You want to call them worldly things. There are demonic powers, and I can't believe they're not already operating through this. What you quoted before, John, was Watchman Nee has a book called Love Not the World. An amazing book. I suggest everybody read that book because even though it's dated, it's really not, and it can totally refer to technology. And Watchman Nee said, when it comes to touching the things of the world, hold them like you hold dynamite. Just know how powerful this thing is that you're holding. And he said, remember that everything in the world is trying to draw you away from God.
Mhm.
Everything.
Everything. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so remember that when we're dealing with this tech and AI, underneath it, it's just what we're talking about. So you are not thinking yourself, you're letting this think for you. It's getting more and more control over you. Yeah. And pretty soon,
Yeah. I just want to say,
telling you what to think.
even the elect, that verse, like prior to AI, to me, I was like, I'd read that verse and go, oh, how's that gonna, like, I
Yeah.
can't, I mean,
I know.
and so you had this like, well, not to me, it's not gonna be me, I'm not gonna, but you know what I realize now with AI is, even the elect part, like, because we just talked about the deception is and how it's hard to tell the difference, you can't rely on your natural senses anymore. You can't rely on your human sense. The only way you're going to be able to tell is through the discernment and the life inside of you and the Holy Spirit. So, and part of what you said too, I'll shut up after this, but it feeds this country. The God of our country is comfort culture to me. Comfort,
Ease,
God, why are you
security,
making my
yeah.
life hard?
Yeah.
Everything should be easy.
Yeah.
We always get upset with him when things aren't perfect. And if you want to put a stake in the ground, fasting, do these other things, you want to know another thing to your point, because guess what? If you're not using the things that God gave you, you're going to physically deteriorate too. Like, if you're not using your mind, there's the science behind this. Like, it helps you. So we don't go to it for simple things. Like, don't use it for stuff that you should be doing on your own. That's a way you can combat this, because every inch that you give in, it gets easier to do the next thing. And before you know it, you're not having a thought on your own at all anymore.
Yeah.
And that's where you draw the line.
And just a quick comment to the elect, because I think we always think about like voting for like presidents or senators or whatever. The elect is the culture, the follow culture. the big people in pop culture, the big people in financial culture. These are the elect, the people that we have lifted up above ourselves and said, oh, I'm going to follow this person, I'm going to follow this person. They're in these algorithms too, and if they're not grounded in the faith, well, they will be deceived, and everybody that's following them will be deceived as well. Whether it be you're taking advice from somebody for relationships, advice from somebody for money, advice because of their music, whatever.
Yep.
The elect is anything that we are lifting up to now follow and go after.
Yep. And as parents and as the church, we have a responsibility to make sure we're telling our kids because they're getting it everywhere and in school. And I think we just, as parents, if I had young teenagers today, I mean, parents, we really need to be talking to our kids. And as a church, we need to be talking to the kids and really cautioning them and watching, what are they going to for, guys, I think we should pray about it after prayer time.
Yeah. We have prayer after this. We're going to stop. Thanks for your patience. I don't, listen, I think these are vitally important for the life of the church, that we stop and reflect on what's happening in the world around us. Where else are you going to hear this? Tell me, where? Mainstream media is not going to, from a Christian perspective, you're not going to hear this anywhere. So it's important that we do this. But before we leave,
I'm going to sing a song.
you're starting in
I'm
bringing
gonna
back
sing
the
a
tradition.
song.
Oh, you're singing a song.
Yeah,
Okay. All
it's
right.
a special song.
Special song. Go
And
ahead.
I speak personally because, besides today being John's birthday, because he's a January baby, I am also a January baby.
Yeah, Stevie.
My birthday is 1 month after Jesus' birthday. If you need a calculator to figure that out, then you're in trouble. But we did want to ask if there was anyone else born in the month of January. And if you are, we'd like you to stand up. Marky?
Marky, Stevie.
There we go, Steve.
Yeah, Jay.
Stay up, because we want to say to you. Well, hey, Jason, get up there. What are you doing? Steve, stand up again.
It's your physical birthday, dude.
We're not done. The birthday song. A happy birthday to me, a happy birthday to you.
May you find Jesus here every day of the year. Happy birthday
To us, a happy birthday to you, and the best year you ever.
Steve, happy birthday, everybody. My brain wanted to say, may you find AI near after the conversation we just had. It's not good.
No, you're already
All right,
been
and we have
indoctrinated.
some cake over here. If
We
you,
have
you,
cake.
you haven't had enough
a birthday
sugar,
cake. Look at that.
the last couple
Wow.
of weeks,
Woo.
there's a cake that's coming out. We have prayer over here in about 10 minutes. If we don't see you, have a great week. We'll see you next week.